Hey bakers, Martin here in the studio today, and we're making a Neapolitan pizza sandwich. This is something that's inspired by Evan Funke's creation at his restaurant Mother Wolf out on the West Coast. He calls it La Mortazza, and he's filling it after baking with mortadella and some other things. We've got our own twist on it. Let's make it. Okay, so let's shape this Neapolitan pizza sandwich. Now remember, we're using our Neapolitan dough. Recipes on the back of this bag of 00 flour. We're using 00 as always because it has a nice balance between stretchiness and strength. And that's what we want for this because we want a puffy edge crust and we don't want to fight the dough. So I mixed this dough last night and then divided it this morning, and it's had a chance to rest so that I can stretch it about 45 to 60 minutes. The batch makes 2 pieces. Here I've obviously quadrupled it, right? I've made a 4 times batch because it's nice to have some extras. Okay, so in order to shape, you can either work with semolina on the bench or you can work with some of the flour. It doesn't really matter. So these doughs are very relaxed and they're very soft. So maybe even a little bit of semolina on top. So, dough piece onto the counter, and I've got a lot of semolina down, like I said, semolina or flour. And you can put a little bit more on top if you want, just to make sure that you're not going to stick. And then, beginning in the middle and slowly working to that outside edge, I begin to form my dough. And if the dough is well relaxed, you may find that you don't really need much more than just a gentle pressing to get it the size that you want. If it's fighting you, you can always come back, or if you want, you can pick it up and stretch it just on the back of your hand, letting gravity do the work, and just stretching a little bit. And the size for this is, 9 or 10 inches, somewhere in that range. I'm a little bit shy, so I'm going to continue just a titch, and that feels about right. Once you have it to about the size you want, clean your surface just a little bit because we're kind of done with that. Pretty good. That's 10 inches, right around there. And that's what I want. Now, the next step is to add a little bit of olive oil to the interior of this dough because what we're going to do is we're going to fold it onto itself, and that olive oil is going to prevent it from fully adhering so that after the bake we can open up and then we can put our toppings inside. Okay, so just a little bit of olive oil on the surface. You can use a brush if you want, or if you just want to drizzle it, that's fine too. So it doesn't take a lot, just enough to keep it from adhering to itself there. And that's it. So next thing is I'll go ahead and fold it onto itself. And I've got a piece of parchment here that's ready. I'm going to bake these on parchment, and that's going to help me as I go to slide this onto my hot baking stone, right? If you're a pro, or if you've done this 100 times, you may not find that you need the parchment. I find it's a good bit of insurance if you're just sort of getting used to this process. So I'm going to fold the dough in half onto itself, forming this sort of half circle. Place it onto my parchment. Adjust it as necessary. So grab your peel, get that on there, and we're off to the oven. So we've loaded this. We're going to bake it for about 4 to 5 minutes until it just starts to take some color, and then I'm going to switch it to broil and really add that top heat, trying to emulate some of the characteristics of a really hot wood-fired pizza oven. All right. Look at this thing. That did exactly what we want it to. This did exactly what we want it to. It looks like a Neapolitan pizza, right? Except we're going to turn it into a sandwich. It's got that puffy edge crust. It's got a little bit of color where the broiler sort of kissed it with heat. It's nice and dark, beautifully baked on the bottom. This puffy edge crust is a signature of this recipe and also a signature of the 00 flour. It has the tenderness, it has the strength, it has everything that we want except the filling. So let's get some stuff inside here. I can tell this is going to be good without even tasting it. In fact, like just a little drizzle of olive oil and some garlic on here would be incredibly good to eat, but we're going to make it even better. So I'm going to start with a piece of burrata. If you're not familiar with burrata, or if you don't have access to it, just use fresh mozzarella. This is basically just fresh mozzarella, but with some curds inside. It's almost like a mozzarella dumpling or something. So there is the burrata, and now I'm gonna add some of this mortadella. Mortadella is a pork product. It's cooked and it has some aromatics in it. Often pistachio, sometimes myrtle berries. And now, we're gonna add some additional things. A little bit of lemon zest. And what the lemon is gonna do is it's gonna add a little bit of brightness. We've got a lot of sort of creamy qualities, you know? The mozzarella, the pork. So having this is gonna give it some brightness. That's gonna help. And to further amplify that, just a little bit of lemon juice. I like a little bit of heat, and so I'm gonna add just a pinch of some really spicy chili flake and a little bit more aromatic, and so I have some nutmeg. These are optional. You want something else, put something else in here. But in all the sort of trials that I did of this is where I landed after a bunch of attempts. And I feel like this is the one that I'm the most excited about. So a little bit of coarse salt, just a little bit, and some pistachios. A little bit of pecorino romano. Just a little bit of snow on there. Okay, olive oil. Whoop. And we're pretty much there. You can eat it just like that. I think it looks really pretty if you brush it with a little bit of olive oil. Gives it a little bit of shine. And a little bit more cheese. And just a sprinkle of pistachios. Tell me to stop, Tucker. Just tell me. That's probably enough. Look at that. I mean, it's almost too beautiful to eat, almost. Look how pretty that is. I always like to smell before I eat, you know. It's part of the joy, and it's part of the experience too. And what I smell when I smell this is citrus. I smell a little bit of that mortadella. I see the lactic, and I know that that's going to be this sort of creamy sensation. I've got the crunchy of the nuts in there. The pecorino romano is going to add some brightness. Man, beautiful, beautiful sandwich. I feel like I need a timeout. I mean, like, timeout. We have to stop and just think about this for a second. This isn't where this sandwich began for me. I started with burrata and the mortadella, a little bit of pistachio in there, and I thought, yeah, this is good, but it was like it was too creamy. There was just not enough contrast in there, and that's when I started layering things, and so I added the lemon juice, I added the lemon zest. I felt like nutmeg might be an interesting aromatic to bring in, and the pecorino, which adds this brightness, almost like tart quality, as well was another stack. And you can do the same thing with your own choices, you know? Fill this however you want. These days I've seen them in probably 100 different variations on this idea that Evan Funke had. So it's a place to play. Think about those contrasts and enjoy them. That little bit of chili is kind of coming through on the tail end too. Beautiful 00 flour giving us this tender, open, puffy edge crust. Man. I'm going back in, Tucker. Let me cut you a piece, okay? So, Neapolitan pizza sandwich. At Evan's restaurant, they call it La Mortazza. Mortazza is the word for mortadella in Rome. All right, so let's fill it. I've got another set of toppings that we're gonna use for this one. Beautiful open edge crust, incredibly tender crumb. When I squeeze it, it's like, it's crisp on the outside, but it yields. It's super tender. I'm like looking at you to see if I can go ahead and bite. It's a little bit spicy. The burrata is just sort of making its own sauce with this creamy, beautiful color and I mean, Tucker, come on. Neapolitan pizza sandwich coming to us from Evan Funke. Thanks, Evan.